This is Stacey Hanke from Stacey Hanke Inc., and you're listening to The Speaking Show with David Newman.
My guest today is the awesome and amazing Stacey Hanke, author of Influence Redefined. Awesome, amazing book. Let's start there, Stacey Hanke. How are you redefining influence? I know a lot of people might come to your website or meet you and go, oh, she talks about presentation skills, but this is way more than presentation skills. So talk to us about this whole influence for executives and C-suite leaders.
You've hit my sweet spot because the first thing I always tell potential clients, I'm not a presentation skills company. I think it's so much more about how you present yourself every day, no matter what medium you're pushing that message through or whom you're trying to influence. That ties to Influence Redefined. There's a big misperception of what it is and what it's not. I bet a lot of your listeners can relate to this, what it's not. A lot of us believe that when the stakes are high, boardroom meeting, presentation, virtual presentation, whatever it might be, sales pitch, we turn it on. And you can tell people turn it on because they're caught up in their own dialogue and everyone else is in their smartphones. What influence is, and this is how the book gets kicked off, is it's defined as body language and messaging need to be consistent Monday to Monday. That no matter when you show up, no matter where you show up, people never have to guess what David is going to show up. That's part one. The second part of Influence Redefined is that you've got this ability, when you have true influence, the ability to move people to action long after the interaction has occurred. That's it. Now I say that's it, but if you think about those two definitions and to accomplish that Monday to Monday, that is going to take a lot of work, a lot of discipline, and a lot of focus. And that's what the book helps people guide them through.
So it sounds like there is a huge leadership application of all of your tools and principles and philosophies, probably also a huge sales application. So sales leaders, salespeople, people that need to get buy-in, people that need to exert their influence and their persuasion skills in a selling situation. Do you see a big difference between using your strategies as a leader versus using them as a sales tool?
I don't, because I think anyone who's in a leadership role or in sales, that's the profit center of a company, yes? That's where profits are coming through. That tends to be my company's sweet spot as far as who we target. Not that we don't work with anyone else, because everyone has this ability to influence. I think where there's a difference is more, are you a CEO or are you a director of sales? The CEO is supposed to have all these skills. We like to believe, well, they've been in this industry for long enough, or they're born with these skills. That's why they became a CEO. I've worked with enough CEOs, David, behind closed doors, one-on-one, where all of this gets unveiled, where a lot of times CEOs, I had one not too long ago say to me, I bet you wonder how I ever became a CEO. Now that comment was after we did some videotaping. We were watching it on the playback together. There's not a difference in skill sets. I think there's a lack of awareness. That probably applies to David, whether it's a leader, whether it's a sales professional. Overall, all of us, no matter what our profession is, there's a lack of awareness of the level of influence we really have through the eyes and ears of our listeners, rather than what we believe to be true when we're communicating verbally or non-verbally.
Let me also ask you, just relative to what you just said, when the CEO says, I bet you're wondering how I became a CEO, you probably run into this misconception a lot. I know that I get this a lot sometimes from my clients and audiences where they go, well, David, I'm not like you. Or Stacey, I'm not like you. I'm not this high energy, big personality. I don't have your energy or enthusiasm. And they think there's one brand of energy or enthusiasm or powerful persuasion skill. Can we do this with introverts? Can we do this with the more quiet CEO, like the scientific type, the analytical type? Is there hope for them? Or is this born or made? Help us out here.
Right, exactly. We always are asked that, right? I remember when Steve Jobs, when he was around and everyone thought he was born a leader. He was born a great communicator. And I'm here to prove it wrong because there's video recordings of him, David, when he first started presenting that are pretty poor. I can say that because he admitted to it. Here's the difference. When people ask me, I'm an introvert, I'm an extrovert, or I'm more scientific, will this work? My response to that, if you're willing to do the work that it takes to have that consistent, influential brand Monday to Monday, it will work. I'm not out there to make you me or vice versa. It's about, keep in mind what the definition of influence is. Even if it's someone who's very research or analytical focused, it's making sure that when they're in a conversation, the body language and the messaging match. That doesn't mean you have to be passionate and super excited and high energy like you and I are. I'm just saying, make sure the best of you shows up every day. And the best of you is that body language and messaging, they're not in two different locations. They resonate together.
So, Stacey, that makes perfect sense for the CEO. When we talk about leadership teams, or we talk about teams of people that are going out presenting on behalf of their company, or they're at internal meetings, maybe they're pitching for investment capital, there's all kinds of speakers and presenters and influencers at the top couple of levels of a company. It's not always in the C-suite. How is what you teach a CEO different or the same as what you would teach to a team? Let's say they're going out to trade shows, they're going out to conferences, they've got pitch meetings, they're doing webinars, they're doing all these different sort of communication strategies. Is it the same skill set, or is it a little bit broader when we get to those other distribution methods?
Yes and no. I'm going to use an analogy here, like golf. If you and I go for a golf lesson, we're going to get the same skill sets, but those skills are going to be based on our handicap, on our strengths, where we can improve. Those skill sets, David, are also going to relate to what course are we working? Where are the sand pits? How far is the green from where we're hitting it off the tee? It's the same concept where the skill sets are the same. Having brevity, building trust, getting to point, it's the same. Where we start adapting is the CEO talking to their board members, and the objective is you have to communicate it in 5 minutes and get to the point. Versus a sales leader is on a trade show floor and they get time to socialize, create a relationship there versus having to get right to the point and finding out the need. That to me is the next level of influence. So if you can imagine almost a model in front of us where we started this call is the definition of influence. Body language and messaging need to be consistent. Once that self-awareness is there, now it's that next level of adaptability. And I think that's the hard part. You eventually get there. First, just be aware of how you're coming across and knowing how to adapt it when you need to adapt it, when it's not hitting your listeners' ears or they're not responding, they're not understanding what you're saying.
So you mentioned about the golf analogy. And obviously, if we're in the sand trap, we made some terrible mistake. What are some mistakes that most executives make when it comes to exerting their influence, as you say, Monday to Monday?
This one might be a surprise to you because you would think an executive would have brevity. None of us are not guilty of saying too much. We go on and on. We fill. We use filler words. We don't answer the question. We start to have this dialogue with ourselves. When people speak in these long-winded paragraphs rather than bulleted sentences, it comes across as if you're having a conversation with yourself. That's the sandpit number one. And people are really surprised at that because we hear ourselves so differently in most cases than what our listeners hear us. Number two, it's how I teach this idea of trust. The only skill that conveys trust is when you can look people dead in the eye without having a conversation with the floor, with the table you're sitting at, with your smartphone, with the PowerPoint slide behind us. I mean, how many of us are guilty of that? I talk a lot about when you're in a conversation, only speak when you see eyes. No eyes, no talk. That's easy to remember. The second is we lack that consistency of our tone of our voice, perhaps sometimes our volume, because we hear ourselves sound so differently than what reality states, that we might say we're excited, we're passionate. It comes across, though, that you just told bad news instead of you're truly passionate and excited. People are surprised by that, David, because this is not rocket science. We've been told for years, stop using filler words. Look people in the eyes when you talk. Yet, I live right in Chicago. And a little side bit note, the state is trying to pass a law. I've heard that it's a law already in Honolulu. I don't know if that's fact. That if you get caught walking the crosswalk downtown Chicago, looking down at your phone, your first offense is $50. First time getting caught. Second time, it happens again and you're caught, $500 for your second offense. And I bet anyone that's listening to us right now, or even yourself, how many times have you gone into your corporate clients' buildings? You're walking around the hallway. That's a research project in itself. How many people are heads down, running into things, or you easily could run into someone? We're becoming a very disconnected world. And I'm not saying our technical gadgets are not a powerful way to have another option to have influence. It's when is it time to hang up the email and have a physical conversation with people? Or what we're doing today, we push a lot in our workshops when we work with groups that are all virtual. They're trying to influence through a conference call, a webinar. I am constantly saying to them, use the technology that we've been given by simply turning on your webcam. And the majority of your challenges that you're facing, I don't know if they're paying attention. Are they on their phones? Will go away because now you're asking them to respect that time that you have together.
For sure. Not checking email, not hanging out on Facebook, not flipping through your phone.
I can't do that now with you. I mean, you see me, all of your listeners see me. It's as if you're all there together. We've got the technology. I challenge our listeners, try it out. Try it out 5 times in 1 week and then determine whether or not you want to do it again based on the results that you're getting.
I'm going to ask you for some gems, specifically in your work with executives, with CEOs, with teams. What aspects of influence are actually easier than most of your clients expect? And which ones are harder than most of your clients expect? Like low-hanging fruit, is there like something that we can start doing? Just like you mentioned eye contact a moment ago. Is there like an easy way to kind of up our influence quotient that, people go, oh, it's that simple. It's that one technique. It's that one skill. And then something that might look easy that takes hours and hours and weeks and weeks and months of practice.
The harder ones are what people think is the easy ones. It's how many times have you watched a golfer and you're thinking, all I have to do is hit a golf ball? Really? I can do that. And that's really the mentality of a leader is when I start talking about pausing and looking people dead in the eyes and making sure that the gestures have purpose behind them, people really struggle with that. That's super surprising for a lot of people. So I still say that's the hardest. Now I'm going to flip that. The easiest is when I am talking about brevity, this whole concept of when you say less, you always leave more behind. When they get that concept, they hear themselves on a playback, the light bulb goes on and they realize, wow, okay, why am I making this so hard? Now, I think that ties to content. Once I give a leader a strategy of how to take 20 minutes of information and get it down to 5 minutes if that's what they need, because they're all about saving time. A CEO does not have time. Once I show them how, it's something that's really easy once someone shows you how to do it, like put together a strategy for content, that would go to your answer to your question around what is easier if they're aware and they've got a plan.
I want to also ask you, because there's the kind of presentation aspect of this and what we talk and how we talk. Where does listening play a role?
That goes to your earlier question about that's another hard skill. We don't know how to listen anymore. When did that happen? Listening to me almost is the silent power of influence. But when you're in a meeting, and as a leader, you don't even have to be in a leadership role for this one. Everyone else is talking or there's a lead facilitator. How you behave as a leader is still a reflection on your personal brand, whether or not it's consistent, huge reflection on your influence. I always tell leaders, if you don't want people to be on their phones when you're talking, stop the behavior yourself. Because people behave the way we behave. That's like a parent. Now, I'm not a parent, but I watch my sisters and how they behave. We always joke with them. Their children are images of them. Yet they're yelling at them for what they're doing. And I just joke back and say, that's what you just did. They're picking up on it. Listening is a lost art. I wonder if it's because we are so caught to our technical gadgets with social media, Facebook, Twitter, emails, whatever it may be. That doesn't always require us to listen as the way that this does. What we're doing today, David, this takes work. I will be honest, I'll be humble here and say, I'll be tired after this. I'll need a moment to get refocused before I dive into the next task at hand. And I share with individuals, if you truly put in all the effort that that person deserves, they didn't just show up because they wanted to. You have to now make it worth their time. And part of that is making sure that they want to listen to you, you're interesting, you're engaging, and you return that favor.
Love that. Totally spot on. Totally spot on. And I love what you said about the parenting, right? That as leaders, don't worry that they're not listening to what you say. Worry that they're watching what you do.
It's so true. Can I share with you a story?
Please.
Ties all this together. This happened about a year ago. And the example's in my book. I was at a conference waiting to go up on stage. And it was a big sales conference for a full week. Now, you know a company is serious if they're pulling their sales professionals out of the field for a week. That's a big profit risk. We're in this huge conference room. You can relate to this, David, from your experience. The house lights are on, and I'm sitting at a big round table in front, CEO on my left, CFO on my right. The CEO goes to the front stage and he's kicking off the week. He's talking about how critical it is that we pulled you out of the environment to be here. The entire time, David, that he is up on stage, the CFO, she's on her phone the entire time. Now keep in mind, the house lights are on. It gets better. They switch roles. He comes off stage. She goes up. She grabs the microphone. She's talking about how critical it is. We pulled you out of the field. It is so critical that we invested in your development for a full week. Shut off your phones. And that's an example of what I mean by people are watching you. And I don't care if you're in a leadership role or not in a leadership role. That is why throughout my book, throughout our workshops, we're constantly saying video and audio tape yourself on a regular basis. Because the camera around you, which is your listener's eyes, it's always on. Here's the good news. You get to decide every day what you want people to say about you behind your back. You get to choose that.
Totally right. Totally spot on. What a great episode. Wowza. Tell you what, if you want to ramp up your revenue as an expert who speaks professionally, you should really check out our free online training at doitmarketing.com/webinar. I want to transition to a little inside baseball. We're talking golf a lot, but we're now doing inside baseball. So as a speaker, as someone who's running a speaking-driven business, I have to give you just huge kudos. First of all, on your website. Because when people go to StaceyHankeInc.com, it is exactly a model of what you just said. It is concise, it is short, it is brief, it is skimmable and scannable, and you have said everything that you need to say, my opinion, in as few words as possible. People would look at this website and go, damn, she must know what she's talking about, because it's short phrases, powerful paragraphs, bullets, great use of video. I know that every speaker's website is a work in progress. How were you able to refine it to such a sharp, clear point? And I know, of course, this is your business, a sharp, clear, effective communication and persuasion and influence. But we often have the shoemaker's children problem, where we're great at doing it for the CEO. We're not so great when it comes to our website. How did that evolve?
All right. Well, so first, that means a lot coming from you.
Thank you.
Website, I got a little nervous because I know this comes a lot from you. And second, I've got to be 100% honest. I have my marketing team, right? So they're a big part of it. I cannot take 100% credit for it. What I can take credit for is I'm constantly pushing the concept, exactly what you're saying, the consistency. A lot of it comes from my growing up, and my father was all about, show up, be on time, just be the best that you can be. And this is coming from, I grew up on a farm. My dad's a farmer. And he knew that. He just was always treat everyone right. That was just his motto. So I'm so religious when it comes to sticking to my ethics and saying, if I tell you to have a clean website, make sure it's consistent with your brand, I have to do it. That's a big part of it. It's pulling back what you want to say and constantly netting it out. It's knowing that I want to say so much more on that website, yet you could care less. It's been years of continuously reworking our material to know what works, what doesn't. Number two, it's getting experts like yourself to truly coach me on where my strengths are, not there. And video, I think video is a big piece of it. It goes back to we're living in this world of noise. No one's going to read your website anymore. That's my personal opinion. People can argue that. I think they'll more likely take time to at least watch part of a video.
And the main call to action is to really either consume something, opt into something, or call you.
That's it. And you'll see there's a lot of value adds. Even when we send emails, we will always send some type of value add. And sometimes it's not my value add. It's not what I've created, but it'll be someone else that I know that client either admires or I know they're having a challenge with that particular topic. I'll find it online from someone that I respect and send it to them. We've done the same thing on the website, so that we can drive, depending on who we're selling to, who we're trying to influence, we can drive them to that particular value add, because the whole website's not going to fit for every person. That's the hard part. And you know that from a marketing piece. Now, if we're going to drive them to the value add, I need to make it super simple because if I lose them in that first second, they're not coming back ever.
And also, let me congratulate you on something else, which is the simplicity of your product suite. So you have what I always call the integrated product suite. This is like the Apple computer model, where if you have the MacBook, you're going to want the iPhone. If you have the iPhone, well, you should probably get an iPad. If you have the iPad, you should probably get the Apple Watch. And everything is in that same kind of groove. It's just different formats and different delivery modes for the same sort of thing. So the way you put that out there is one problem, 4 solutions. So you've got your keynote business, you've got the workshop business, you've got one-on-one mentoring and coaching, and you have a fabulous online program. How were you able to put all of that together, or what was the evolution of like which pieces came first, and then how did those other things come online over time?
It was our customers' feedback, our clients' feedback. The company, and I think you know this, David, the company started keynoting. That was it. There was never a plan in play ever for the first 5 years to do all of this. I wanted a keynote. I wanted it to be a little easier than what it sometimes can be now when the business grows. Then what happened is clients kept asking me, teach our sales folks to do this. Teach our leaders to do this. That's when I realized that's a workshop. I'm one person. There's no way I can execute on that. Workshops got created. Then the CEO would say, I don't feel comfortable sitting in a workshop with my teams. Would you ever do this one-on-one? Well, then one-on-one came into play. And to finally the online, and the online really is follow-on. We do that a lot with anyone that does any type of work with us. If they want us to be their accountability partner for a full year, that's a perfect solution for them. It's also for the individual that might have heard me on a podcast, might have seen me at a conference. They're not sure they're ready for a full blown out mentoring program. They want to just test drive it for a while and they'll hop into that online. I'm sure there's more to come throughout the years as technology evolves, as we need to continue to be innovative. Those 4 solutions right now are really to be able to serve the different needs that are out there and what they look like.
Awesome. Well, and also let me ask you, because you were way early on this boat, is that you knew that your business was going to be bigger than just you. So I think at first you had just a team of people that you trained, but that were like sort of subcontractors. Then it started to grow, and then you had more of a permanent team. And now you're running this entire empire. Tell me about the stresses or the challenges or even the fun parts of having a business that's bigger than you and how that developed over time.
The challenge is the consistency. That's the hardest part because I think about the brand that we've created and this whole idea of executive presence sometimes falls under influence, that now I have to be even that much more careful because people are watching us. They're really watching closely. So the consistency of the team when the instructors are out there, and I truly believe, David, I have the best team that is out there right now. It took a long time to create that. And we went through a lot of opening and closing doors over the years, but they own it. They own it when they're out there. They believe in it. Really, it's their own company. The consistency is the hardest part. The second part is knowing when to take the next step of growth. I'm guessing you probably experienced this as well. And it's keeping your focus on, why did I really create this? For the fun not to go away. Of course, there's days it's not fun. That's part of running a business. Making sure that's there, making sure my ethics are always there, and truly my vision is there. When we experience big growth, that's where sometimes I have to take a step back and say, is this the direction we want it to go for our brand, for my team, and ultimately for my vision? That's the hardest part. Now, with all of that happening, the best part is the same thing. The best part is having a team. The best part is my 2 sisters are now in the company, and to celebrate the successes with them, and I'm not alone anymore. That's the best part. Now, you have a team. You have to financially support that team. That's not the fun part. All of that is layered above the best part is truly the service that we do. And knowing in my heart that we have finally created this product that will continue to grow, that will continue to get better, that has impact on people's lives, not just professionally, but personally. To get emails from clients, I bet you experienced this, David, where they rave about how we've impacted them somehow. That is worth the hours, the ups and downs, the risk that you take when you know the product is still what you created years ago and what it's supposed to be.
Well, Stacey, I want to go back to something that you and I chatted about as far as this growth curve before we flipped on the microphones, which is, I think, a lot of speakers and trainers and coaches and consultants, they have like a number in their head. It's, once I make $200,000, all my problems will go away. And say, well, once I make $500,000, all my problems are going to go away. Man, once I have a 7-figure $1 million business, all my problems are going to go away. True or false?
False. I believe that. I remember the biggest joke with my friends is when I started my company, my first year I wanted to make 100,000. I knew if I made 100,000, David, I could make this work. I just need 100,000 to live in Chicago and do what I need to do. I also thought that when I had a team, I'd be able to go to the museum on a Tuesday afternoon. David, I've never been to a museum on a Tuesday afternoon yet in the last 16 years. That's where I think as a business owner and anyone that's thinking about continuous growth, make sure that you know where your passion is. And I know we've been told this before. Personally, as we have grown, it has gotten a lot harder. If I let it out of control, the stress level can be quite intense some days. And it's being able to really step back and reflecting on why you're doing what you're doing, what the purpose is, and that it's not the dollar amount. The dollar amount will never make you happy. What will make you happy is what you create, both personally and professionally.
That is so huge. Wow. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Well, and one of my mentors says the following. He says, depending on the size of problem that you can handle, that determines the size of the business that you'll have. So if you can handle small problems, you're going to have a small business. You can handle medium-sized problems, you will probably grow and develop into a medium-sized business. And if, like Stacey Hanke, you can handle big, huge, gargantuan problems, you are going to be prepared and have a big, gargantuan business, whatever that means to the folks listening.
It depends on the day.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Does it ever? It's this emotional roller coaster. Even when the finances are great, the clients are coming in, we're making sales, it's still the emotional roller coaster, isn't it?
It can be tough. And I wouldn't have it any other way, though. I look at how much I've learned just in the last 10 years. I would say the last 10 years has been the biggest growth. We just turned 16 last month. The last 10 has had huge growth and a lot of challenges. Here's the key to that too. If anyone can take this nugget, have the right resources, and it's knowing when to let go. I really have truly pride myself in the resources that we have. The accountant, the attorney, those people are golden. And when you've got the right people in play, I can back away from a lot of those problems, David, and say to my attorney, all right, we just got this 50-page contract agreement. I don't even know where to begin. Would you please hop on the call with the client? Because I know you know our business. And that's the relationship we have. He manages that. Now, obviously, you still have to step in. You have to make decisions. That releases a lot of the stress too, is just have the right resources.
So I'm going to ask you 2 final questions in closing. The last question is going to be about how do people get connected and stay connected to Stacey Land. But even before that, if people were to take one key concept away from our conversation today, what would you hope that would be?
I've said it numerous times on podcasts. It's seeing yourself through the eyes and ears of your listeners. You have the smartphone, whatever smartphone you have. I am sure everyone has a technical gadget. Start audio or video recording yourself and watch it. That's your next step to influence. We could have started there today, David, and made this a 2-minute podcast. If you would have asked me that question, all I would have said, if you want to influence Monday to Monday, start recording yourself. That'll do it.
Tremendous. Now, I know people are going to want more. They're going to want to have a front row seat to your empire. How do people get connected and stay connected to the Stacey Hanke empire?
Yeah, go back to the website where all those value adds are. And it's Stacey with an EY, HANKEINC.com.
All the good stuff is there.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, Stacey. Well, that wraps up another episode of The Speaking Show. Hey, tell you what, if you like us, rate us and review us on iTunes. Subscribe. Tell a friend. Go grab the notes and downloads and extras at thespeakingshow.com. See you next time.